In the unforgiving expanse of the Old West, where law and justice were often as wild and unpredictable as the land itself, one cowboy's courage would ignite a story that defied the harshest divisions of his time. He stood alone, not with a gun drawn, but with a heart fierce enough to defend what was right, even when it meant facing the venomous spit of a crowd blinded by prejudice. In a world that sought to keep people apart by the color of their skin or the chains of their past, this cowboy's act of bravery sparked a ripple that would swell into a tidal wave of solidarity and strength. It began with a simple but profound act, defending a man still shackled by slavery, a human soul yearning for freedom and dignity in a land that had long denied both. The cowboy's stand was not just a gesture of defiance. It was a declaration that humanity cannot be divided by injustice. Yet, for this boldness, he paid a heavy price. The townsfolk, entrenched in their fears and biases, turned against him, their contempt spilling out in cruel acts meant to break his spirit. He was spit on, scorned, and cast out, a lone figure against a tide of hatred. But the story does not end in isolation or defeat. From the shadows of oppression emerged an army of 300 freedmen, men and women who had known pain but refused to be broken. They rallied around the cowboy, lifting him up, carrying him through the very town that had rejected him. Their strength was not just physical, but symbolic, a powerful testament to the bonds forged in struggle and the unyielding quest for justice. Together, they transformed a moment of cruelty into a movement of hope. This tale is more than history. It is a profound exploration of courage, solidarity, and the unbreakable spirit of those who stand for what is right against overwhelming odds. It invites us to witness the power of unity in the face of division, and to remember that sometimes the bravest acts come not from the many, but from the few willing to risk everything for justice. Stay with us as we delve into this unforgettable chapter of the Old West, a story of a cowboy, a slave, and 300 freedmen whose defiance reshaped a town and echoed across generations. It is a story that will challenge, inspire, and remind us all of the enduring power of standing up for what is right. The dusty streets of a small frontier town held the heavy weight of tension and unspoken fears, where the divisions of race and power were drawn as sharply as the horizon. In the midst of this volatile landscape stood a lone cowboy, a figure of rugged determination and quiet honor. When he saw a man still shackled by slavery, a soul yearning for freedom, he made a choice that would change everything. With no weapons drawn, only his voice and courage, he stepped forward to defend the enslaved man against a crowd that sought to perpetuate cruelty and injustice. It was a stand born not of law, but of unwavering humanity, a stand that would brand him both hero and outcast. The townsfolk, steeped in their prejudices and fears, reacted with venomous disdain. The cowboy, who had risked everything to defend the dignity of another, found himself the target of scorn and hatred. Spit flew, words cut deep, and his reputation was stained by those unwilling to see past the color of a man's skin or the chains of history. The act of bravery that should have been celebrated became a source of derision, isolating him from a community quick to punish what it did not understand or accept. But beneath the surface of oppression and cruelty, a powerful force was gathering. 300 freedmen, men and women who had tasted the bitterness of bondage and emerged with unbroken spirits, heard of the cowboy's stand. Their lives were marked by struggle, yet their hearts remained full of courage and solidarity. Seeing his bravery and the injustice he faced, they chose not silence but action, a collective uprising of support that would shake the very foundations of the town. This army of freedmen, united by a shared past and a vision for a just future, marched not with guns or rage, but with the strength of their numbers and the righteousness of their cause. Together, they carried the cowboy through the streets, an act of defiance and hope, a statement that justice cannot be silenced by hatred. The sight was powerful, 300 souls lifting one man, a symbol of resistance and the unyielding fight for equality in the unforgiving West. Their march transformed the narrative of the town and the frontier itself. It was a moment where courage met community, where a single act of compassion ignited a movement of solidarity. This story, etched in the dust and blood of the Old West, calls us to witness the power of standing together against injustice, reminding us that true strength lies in unity and the courage to defend what is right. The aftermath of the march sent ripples through the town's social fabric, shaking the pillars of fear and hatred that had long held sway. The Freedmen's solidarity was not merely a show of strength, but a declaration that the time for change was inevitable. Their presence, swelling to 300 strong, was a living testament to resilience born from suffering and an unyielding demand for dignity and respect. The cowboy, once isolated and ridiculed, found himself embraced by a community forged not by blood, but by shared conviction. Behind the scenes, the freedmen organized themselves with quiet determination. They coordinated support for each other, shared stories of survival, and strategized for the battles ahead. Not just those fought with fists or rifles, but those waged in courts, homes, and hearts. Their fight was as much for recognition and justice as it was for freedom, and the Cowboys' defense had become a rallying cry that gave voice to their collective hope. The town's power brokers, those clinging to the old order, were unsettled by the new reality. Their attempts to discredit the freedmen and the cowboy met with increasing resistance. The unity displayed that day was a message that could not be ignored. The people who had been silenced were rising, carrying not only a man through the streets, but the weight of a movement demanding change. Tensions simmered, but beneath the surface, the seeds of transformation were taking root. Meanwhile, the cowboy grappled with his new role. The man who had acted out of a simple sense of justice now found himself at the heart of a revolution he never sought. His courage had sparked a flame, but he understood that the fight for equality was a long and difficult road, requiring more than bravery. It demanded wisdom, patience, and unwavering commitment. His relationship with the freedmen deepened, built on mutual respect and a shared vision of a future where justice would prevail. Their story illustrates the complex realities of the Old West, a land of opportunity and oppression, of brutality and bravery. It invites us to explore the powerful bonds formed in the crucible of struggle and to recognize that standing up for what is right often means standing alone until others join the fight. Together, their journey is a testament to the enduring spirit of resistance and the transformative power of unity. The cowboys' act of courage and the freedmen's solidarity sent shockwaves through the town's rigid social order, challenging the deeply entrenched prejudices that had long dictated life in the Old West. As the freedmen carried him through the streets, the very air seemed charged with a mix of defiance and hope, a powerful contrast to the hostility that had greeted him moments before. This spectacle was more than a physical act. It was a bold declaration that the tides of change were unstoppable, that the bonds of injustice could be broken by unity and unwavering courage. Yet, the road ahead was far from easy. The town's fiercest opponents doubled down on their efforts to suppress the rising movement, wielding fear and violence to intimidate those who dared stand for equality. Threats were whispered in dark alleys, and some turned to force to maintain their grip on power. But the freedmen, bolstered by the cowboys' bravery and their own unyielding spirit, refused to back down. Their resilience became a beacon, inspiring others in surrounding settlements to find their voices and join the cause for justice. Within this crucible of conflict, relationships were tested and alliances forged. The cowboy found himself navigating a complex web of loyalties and betrayals, learning that courage alone was not enough to sustain a movement. He leaned on the wisdom of the freedmen leaders, men and women who had endured unimaginable hardship, yet emerged as pillars of strength and strategy. Their collaboration transcended racial divides, bound by a shared commitment to dismantle oppression and build a future grounded in dignity and respect. Amid the tension, moments of humanity shone brightly. The freedmen and the cowboy shared stories around campfires, weaving tales of survival, loss, and hope. These narratives became the lifeblood of their cause, fueling determination and reminding them of the stakes at hand. The cowboy, once an outsider in many respects, had become an integral part of a community united not by blood, but by a vision of justice that could no longer be silenced. Their journey reveals the complicated realities of fighting for what is right in a land torn by division. It underscores the power of solidarity in the face of adversity and the necessity of steadfast resolve. Together, they embodied the spirit of the Old West, not just as a place of conflict, but as a crucible for profound transformation. As the months passed, the movement sparked by the Cowboys' defense and the Freedmen's support grew in strength and scope. What began as a single act of bravery evolved into a collective force advocating for change across the frontier. The Freedmen organized rallies, petitioned local leaders, and forged networks of support that reached beyond the town's borders. Their voices, once silenced, now echoed loudly, demanding recognition, rights, and justice. The Cowboy stood alongside them, not as a leader, but as a steadfast ally whose actions had ignited a flame that refused to be extinguished. This newfound unity faced fierce opposition, but it also attracted allies, settlers, former soldiers, and even some town officials who recognized the moral imperative of the cause. These unlikely partnerships were fragile yet vital, showing that progress often requires crossing divides and challenging long-held beliefs. The Cowboy's example, his willingness to stand alone and then with others, inspired many to reconsider their own roles in a society rife with inequality. However, the path was fraught with sacrifices. Violence flared in the streets as tensions escalated, and the threat of retaliation loomed over every gathering. The Freedmen and their supporters faced arrests, intimidation, and loss. The Cowboy, too, bore the scars of standing firm in a hostile environment. Yet, their resolve remained unbroken, fueled by the conviction that their fight was not just for themselves, but for generations yet to come. Amidst the struggle, the bonds between the Cowboy and the Freedmen deepened into something unshakable, a brotherhood forged in the fires of resistance and shared vision. They celebrated victories, small and large, from the release of a prisoner to the passage of new laws protecting freedmen's rights. Each success was a step toward healing a fractured land and redefining what justice could look like in a place once ruled by division and fear. This chapter of their story reminds us that change is often a battle fought on many fronts: physical, political, and emotional. It calls us to honor those who dare to stand for justice, knowing the cost, and to remember that even in the harshest landscapes, unity and courage can blaze a path to freedom. The growing movement brought a shift in the town's atmosphere, a simmering tension between those clinging to old prejudices and those daring to envision a new future. The Cowboy and the Freedmen, once isolated voices, became a formidable force challenging the status quo. They held meetings under the wide-open sky, their words weaving hope into the fabric of a community long divided by fear and hatred. Every gathering was a testament to their resilience and a call to action for others to join their fight for dignity and justice. Despite the mounting opposition, the coalition's resolve never wavered. The Cowboy, having faced spit and scorn, now walked with a quiet confidence born from the strength of unity. He became a symbol not just of individual bravery, but of the collective power that arises when people stand together. The Freedmen's leaders, wise and strategic, guided the movement with patience and vision, understanding that true change required persistence and sacrifice. Together, they forged a path through hostility, inspiring others with their unwavering dedication. Violence and threats were constant reminders of the cost of defiance. Skirmishes erupted on the outskirts, and some supporters faced imprisonment or exile. Yet, even in the darkest hours, the spirit of the movement burned bright. The community that once spat on the Cowboy now looked to him and the Freedmen as beacons of hope. Their courage challenged hearts hardened by prejudice and planted seeds of change that would grow over time. In quieter moments, bonds deepened beyond politics and protests. The Cowboy and Freedmen shared stories of loss, resilience, and dreams for a better world. These personal connections fueled their collective strength and reminded them of the humanity behind the cause. It was this shared compassion, more than anything, that bound them together and propelled the movement forward. This part of their journey shows us that the fight for justice is both collective and deeply personal. It underscores the power of solidarity in overcoming adversity and the importance of compassion in sustaining the struggle for a better future. As the movement gained momentum, it reached a pivotal moment, when ideals met reality, and the true test of their resolve began. The freedmen and the cowboy faced legal battles, economic pressures, and social ostracism designed to break their spirit. Yet, they stood firm, armed not just with weapons, but with the unwavering belief that their cause was just and their future worth fighting for. Each courtroom victory and peaceful rally was a step toward dismantling the walls of injustice that had long defined their lives. Allies from unexpected places joined the cause, settlers who had grown weary of the violence and divisions, former soldiers who recognized the cowboys' honor, and even some town leaders who saw the winds of change blowing. These alliances, fragile yet vital, demonstrated the power of unity across differences. The cowboy, once alone, now stood surrounded by community, ready to face the future together. The threats and challenges continued, but the movement's spirit was unbreakable. Their determination became a beacon, drawing attention from neighboring towns and distant cities. The story of a cowboy spit on for defending a slave, lifted by 300 freedmen, transcended the frontier and became a symbol of courage and hope nationwide. In moments of rest, the cowboy reflected on the journey, a path marked by pain and triumph, isolation and connection. He knew the fight was far from over, but the strength he found in the freedmen's camaraderie and the justice they pursued gave him a renewed sense of purpose. Together, they were rewriting history, proving that even the fiercest opposition cannot silence the call for equality. This chapter reminds us that progress demands courage, patience, and unwavering faith in justice. It calls us to stand alongside those who fight for what is right, knowing that their sacrifices pave the way for a better tomorrow. The tide of change that the cowboy and the 300 freedmen had set in motion began to transform not only their town, but the hearts of those who lived within it. What started as an act of individual courage blossomed into a collective movement, challenging the very foundation of a society built on division and fear. The cowboy, once scorned and spit upon for defending a slave, now stood as a living symbol of justice and resilience, a man who had risked everything to stand on the right side of history. The freedmen, through their unwavering support and solidarity, showed that strength is found not in numbers alone, but in the unity of purpose and the courage to demand dignity. Their presence in the streets, carrying a man once rejected, was a powerful rebuke to hatred and a clarion call for change that echoed far beyond the dusty frontier. Yet, the path forward was fraught with danger and resistance. The old order, threatened by the rising voices for equality, fought back with everything at its disposal: intimidation, violence, and political maneuvering. The cowboy and the freedmen faced not only physical threats, but the psychological warfare of oppression designed to break their spirit and fracture their alliance. Despite these formidable obstacles, their resolve only hardened. They understood that their fight was about more than themselves. It was about reclaiming a future where justice and humanity could prevail over prejudice and cruelty. The sacrifices made in those turbulent days became the foundation upon which a new community was built, one that embraced inclusion and respect. Amidst the turmoil, moments of profound humanity emerged. The cowboy, once a solitary figure, found deep companionship in the leaders of the freedmen, men and women who carried their own scars but refused to be defined by them. Around campfires and in hushed conversations, they shared stories of loss, hope, and dreams for a better world. These connections fueled their determination and reminded them of the power of empathy in sustaining a movement. The movement was no longer just political. It was deeply personal, a testament to the unbreakable bonds forged through shared struggle and mutual respect. As their cause gained momentum, they inspired others beyond their town. Stories of their courage traveled along railroad lines, through telegrams, and word of mouth, reaching distant places hungry for hope and justice. The image of 300 freedmen lifting a spit-upon cowboy became a beacon for those who believed that change was possible even in the darkest corners of a divided nation. Their story challenged narratives of fear and hatred and replaced them with one of solidarity and the enduring fight for equality. This chapter of their journey reveals the profound truth that the pursuit of justice is not a solitary battle, but a collective endeavor. It shows that unity, compassion, and unwavering courage can topple the walls of oppression and build bridges where there were once only divides. Their legacy stands as a powerful reminder that every voice matters, and that together, even the most marginalized can wield incredible power. With the seasons turning and the frontier's relentless sun casting long shadows over the dusty streets, the movement spearheaded by the Cowboy and the Freedmen entered a critical phase, one that demanded not only bravery, but strategic wisdom and unshakable perseverance. The legal battles they faced were daunting. The systems of power they challenged were deeply entrenched and resistant to change. Yet, with every courtroom victory, every peaceful demonstration, and every whispered conversation in back rooms, they chipped away at the walls of injustice. The Cowboy, once merely a defender of a single man's dignity, had become an integral part of a larger cause, a cause that sought to redefine freedom and equality in the very heart of the West. Their coalition was diverse and complex, bringing together individuals from different walks of life united by a shared vision. Former soldiers who had once fought on opposite sides now stood shoulder to shoulder, bound by a commitment to justice. Town leaders hesitant at first began to see the moral imperative, and settlers weary of violence and division found new hope. These alliances, though fragile at times, underscore the movement's strength, that true change requires crossing boundaries and embracing shared humanity. The Cowboy's journey from outcast to symbol of unity mirrored the transformation sweeping through the town itself. However, the stakes were high, and the consequences real. Retaliation from those clinging to the old order came swiftly and without mercy. Arrests, threats, and acts of violence sought to silence the voices demanding change. Yet, each attack only steeled their resolve. The Freedmen and the Cowboy drew strength from each other, their shared hardships reinforcing the bonds that made them unbreakable. They knew that the road to justice was perilous, but their conviction never wavered. In the face of adversity, their courage illuminated the path forward. Behind the scenes, strategic planning and careful diplomacy became as vital as the acts of protest and defiance. The Cowboy worked closely with Freedmen leaders to navigate the complex social and political landscape. They balanced the need for peaceful advocacy with the reality of imminent threats, always mindful that their actions could inspire hope or provoke backlash. This delicate dance required wisdom and unity, qualities that grew stronger with each passing day. Their shared leadership transformed the movement from a spontaneous uprising into a sustainable force for change. Their story during this pivotal time reminds us that the struggle for justice is multifaceted, requiring bravery, strategy, and an unyielding belief in the possibility of a better world. It calls on us to recognize the power of solidarity and the importance of standing firm, even when the odds seem insurmountable. Together, the Cowboy and the Freedmen exemplified the enduring human spirit's capacity to resist, rebuild, and ultimately triumph. As the seasons shifted and the movement gained momentum, the Cowboy and the Freedmen became more than just symbols. They evolved into the very heart of a revolution that challenged the deeply rooted systems of injustice. Their fight was no longer confined to the streets of one small town. It echoed across the territories, inspiring countless others who yearned for freedom and equality. The Cowboy, once spat upon and scorned, now walked with the pride of a man who had stood unyielding against hatred, carried by the strength of 300 voices united in purpose. This transformation was profound, showing that the power of one can become the power of many when courage is met with solidarity. Yet, the path was fraught with hardship and sacrifice. The enemies of progress unleashed every weapon at their disposal: violence, lies, and intimidation, to quell the rising tide of change. Friends were lost, homes were threatened, and the weight of the struggle pressed heavily on every soul involved. Despite this, the movement's spirit remained unbroken, fueled by the shared belief that justice was not a privilege for the few, but a right for all. Each challenge met was a testament to their resilience and an affirmation of the power of collective action. Amidst the struggle, moments of humanity and hope shone brightly. The cowboy and the freedman gathered in quiet spaces to share stories, laughter, and dreams for a future free from fear and oppression. These personal connections fortified their resolve, reminding them that their fight was not only political, but deeply personal. The bonds they forged transcended race, class, and past wounds, creating a foundation for a community that could heal and thrive beyond the frontier's harsh realities. The movement's victories, both large and small, echoed through the region. Laws were challenged and changed, prejudices confronted and dismantled, and the once rigid social order began to bend toward justice. The cowboy and the freedman had not only carried a man through town, they had carried a vision for a new world, one where dignity and equality were the cornerstones of society. Their legacy became a beacon for future generations, a testament to the enduring power of hope and unity. This part of their journey reminds us all that true change requires perseverance, courage, and the willingness to stand together against injustice. It teaches us that even in the darkest times, the light of solidarity can shine brightly enough to illuminate a path toward freedom. As twilight settled over the frontier, the cowboy and the freedman stood united, reflecting on the monumental journey they had undertaken. Their story, marked by pain, sacrifice, and unwavering courage, had transcended the confines of their town to become a symbol of hope for a divided nation. The man once spat upon for defending a slave was now lifted by hundreds, his strength drawn from the collective will of a people determined to reclaim their humanity. Together, they had woven a tapestry of resistance that spoke to the enduring spirit of those who refused to be silenced. Their victories were hard-won, etched in the scars of battle and the hearts of those they touched. Yet, beyond the legal triumphs and social changes, their greatest achievement was the forging of a community bound by empathy and mutual respect. They demonstrated that true leadership is not about wielding power, but about inspiring others to stand for what is right. Their journey embodied the essence of the Old West's untamed spirit, not just the struggle for land or survival, but the fight for justice and equality. The legacy they left behind was a call to action, a reminder that standing up against oppression requires bravery from many, often at great personal cost. The cowboys' defense and the freedmen's support showed that when individuals unite for a common cause, they can overturn even the most entrenched systems of injustice. Their story continues to resonate, inspiring those who face their own battles against prejudice and inequality. As the sun set on their era, the cowboy and the freedman understood that their fight was part of a larger, ongoing journey toward freedom and dignity for all. Their courage and unity laid the groundwork for future generations to build a society where no one would be spat upon for standing up to injustice, and where every human being could walk freely with pride. This final chapter challenges us to carry forward their legacy, to stand firm in the face of hatred, to lift one another up, and to believe in the power of unity to create lasting change. Their story is not just a history of the Old West, but a timeless testament to the strength of the human spirit. As we close the chapter on this unforgettable story from the Old West, we are reminded that true courage often means standing alone before many stand with us. The cowboy's decision to defend a man enslaved, despite the spit and scorn he faced, sparked a wave of unity that carried him through the very streets that once rejected him. This tale teaches us that standing up for what is right, even when isolated, can inspire a movement powerful enough to change the course of history. Throughout this journey, we have seen how solidarity breaks through walls of prejudice and fear, proving that collective strength rises from acts of individual bravery. The 300 freedmen who rallied to support the cowboy symbolized the power of community and the unyielding fight for justice. Their story urges us to recognize that progress requires persistence, compassion, and the willingness to lift each other up in the face of adversity. Reflecting on this story invites us to examine our own lives and the moments where courage and kindness can make all the difference. It challenges us to act with integrity, to stand firm against injustice, and to understand that even small actions resonate far beyond their immediate impact. This narrative reminds us that true strength is not in silence or submission, but in raising one's voice and standing beside those who need us most. If this story moved you, we invite you to become part of this community of change by subscribing to the channel. Like the video if it inspired you, and share your thoughts in the comments, because your engagement keeps these powerful stories alive and sparks conversations that lead to real impact. Together, we can honor the legacy of those who dare to stand for justice and continue their fight in our own time. Thank you for joining us on this journey. May this story of bravery, unity, and hope inspire you to be courageous in your own life and to stand unwaveringly for what is right.